All right, we're gonna have two parts to this session. One is gonna be a crash course in Python programming. I hope you can see. Yeah, it seems to be on the stream. Let me make my chat a bit smaller so you know what, we'll just let it be, and once we move on to the next slide it should not be much of a problem. All right.
I just read something. How am I supposed to show this? Maybe I can. You know what?
Wait, I could share on our call.
No, I could just stream your.
Stream
how
my
does this
stream.
work? Yeah. There you go. Ta-da, chat. Oh my gosh! Thank you, Jay, for the 100 biddies.
Let's go. Okay, so what history? Yes, stream. Yeah, streamception. All right, so what is programming at its core? It is just telling the computer to work for you in a language that it understands, because obviously the computer speaks its own language, you know, zeros and ones, while we humans speak our own many different languages. There's a lot of layers of abstraction or translation that it goes through. We will maybe cover a bit of that later, but yeah, it's basically a problem of talking to someone who doesn't understand the same language as you. So we need to speak in like this intermediate language, which gets converted into a language that they can understand. So it involves logic and problem solving, because you need to be able to formulate a solution to the problem that you wish to solve within the bounds of what the system can do for you. So obviously you can't just, I mean, with LLMs and ChatGPT, people are probably a lot used to just, prompting the system to just, write this code for me or whatever. But obviously you can't just say something like, just write a program that will take my rocket to the sun. It can't do that. Obviously there's limits to what the system can do for you. So yeah, you have to know what the limits are, and you need to know how to formulate your logic in a form that you can, code within the bounds of the system. Okay, what is Python? Python is just one of many programming languages. You might have heard of some of them, like C, C++, Java. I trust ChatGPT to take me to the moon. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
No, I don't. No, guys. Guys, if you want to trust a certain AI bot chat right now, you should trust Gemini, not ChatGPT.
Yeah, so there's different languages. You might have heard of some of them: C, Java, Rust. Today we're going to be working with Python, which is a very versatile language. It's used in a lot of things, from simple stuff like web development to data science and artificial intelligence. It is considered a high-level language because it is closer to human language than it is to machine code. So remember, I was talking about like there's different layers of translation that we have to go through, right? Okay, let me whip out the MS Paint for this, because that's what streamers do, right? They bring out MS Paint and they draw.
MS Paint.
I need to share my display, I guess, but that's fine.
Hi, Moon. Welcome in. Today we're going to be doing. Oh, hold on. Yeah, we're going to be doing a coding stream. So, yes. Have fun learning and watching us struggle while Beck tries to salvage the situation.
So imagine this. This is you. You're a human being. And imagine this is the computer. It's like a...
So short.
Okay, you can be... okay, how do I make it taller? Never mind.
Oh, yeah, did you?
At least let me give you some hair. Yeah, you're not bald at least. Okay, so you speak in...
Has so many legs, I'm sorry.
What?
The table has how many legs? 1, 2, 3, 4,
That's
5,
not a
6,
table.
7,
That's supposed to be like a... It's supposed to be like a CPU.
You don't have to count it.
Oh, it's a CPU. Okay.
So you're speaking, let's say, English. What the CPU understands is binary.
0, 1.
So how do you get from this to this? So Python is something that's a lot closer to English than it is to this. So that's why we call it a high level language. So you can write Python, which will look something like, you can write, let's say, print hello. I should probably remove. Okay, never mind. So what happens is this gets converted into something called like bytecode, and then the bytecode. I mean, you don't really need to know the details of that, but then this is a lot closer to what this is, and then somewhere along the line there's like assembly, which is like very hard to understand. We'll probably talk about assembly a little bit. Okay, you know what? Let me show you an example of an assembly code because I have it open. Let me switch to
OMG, back
this.
to class, huh? Good luck, I'm being good student. You. Thank you so much.
So we just saw how to print hello in Python, right? It was just one line. That's fine. This is how you would write hello. Oops. Yeah, this is how you would write hello world in assembly. So as you can see, it's a lot more complicated. It involves like writing stuff to registers, moving the correct numbers there, moving your message to the correct register, and then calling like the kernel to do a system call. It's a lot more complicated compared to what we just saw with Python. Python was just one
Oh
line
my
of code,
lord.
and this is what assembly would look like for just printing something on your computer.
What is this, bro?
Yeah, you don't need to
What
worry
is
about that.
this?
There's a reason I picked Python a lot.
I'm too old for this, bro.
Okay, let's move back to Python.
Oh, it is.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's why it's called a high level language. It's a lot closer to human language. It's not the fastest language because obviously it needs to go through multiple layers of translation. But I mean, it's a great language for beginners to learn because it's pretty simple. Okay, let's dive into some of the details. We'll talk about some of the basic concepts like data types. So there's different data types, which you can see to the left here. String is like basically text type. So if you write hello or hello world or whatever, that's a string type. You can have integers, which are just, whole numbers. You can have floats, which are decimal numbers, 3.14. And you can have booleans, which are, true or false values. They are like logical values. A variable is basically, you can compare it to a labeled box where you can store data. So you can have, let's say, a variable called name, which stores the name Alex. You can have a variable called age, which stores their age, which is in this case 25. So you can tell that this variable, the name variable, is a string variable, whereas this age variable is an integer variable because it stores a number. If you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me, obviously.
I don't even think I have questions because I'm so early. I'm like, whoa, this is a lot. But yeah, this is actually really interesting though.
So functions allow you to kind of modularize your code. You can write different functions and call them from other places. So it lets you basically reuse parts of your code. You can pass some parameters or arguments to a function and it could produce an output based on those. So in this case, you have defined, def is for define, a function called greet, and you're passing the name to the function within the braces. So once you call greet and you pass, let's say, the name Sam, it will return hello space Sam. So now if you wanted to greet, let's say, 1,000 people, you could, you could just call this one, you could just say greet, within brackets, you could pass their individual names and it will automatically return this. Obviously, for a one-line function like this, it doesn't really make sense probably why you would do that if you were wondering about that. But you can imagine a function which does something a lot more complicated. For example, let's say you give it the name of an employee and the function will, access some database to find their, let's say, their salary. And using that salary, it will apply some formulas and stuff to find out what their like income tax liability is, things like that. You can imagine that would be a pretty complicated function. And once you define that as a function, you can just call that by passing the name of every employee in your company. And just with one line, you will get the tax liability or whatever you calculated. So yeah, functions are useful when you have some something that you want to repeat for multiple different arguments. And I think maybe it's time we do some live coding. Because, yeah, let's not overload you guys with more concepts. I mean, the next concept, operators. Yeah, we can cover operators a bit later. Let's do some live coding for you guys. So, I have this. There's this GitHub. I'll paste this in the chat too. Give me a second. I need to get coffee. Yeah, if anyone wants to code along with us, feel free to go to this website. So now what you would do is you click on this green code button. It opens this pop-up. Click on download zip. It'll download the zip somewhere in your computer. You can open that zip, code the link that I sent you. If you click on lesson 0, it shows the README in a well-formatted way, so it'll be easy for you to read this. So welcome to your first Python lesson. What you'll learn today is to run a Python script, how to use the print function, and some basics on what a function is, which we've already covered in the slides, so you don't really need to worry about this. But it basically just goes over what we just covered in the slides. A function is a reusable block of code that performs a specific task. It has a simple structure, def, which defines a function, followed by the function name and any arguments you want to pass. In this case, you don't need to worry about defining your function because we're going to be using an inbuilt function called print. So print just takes whatever you give it and displays it on the screen. So, if you write print within brackets high, it'll print high. If you do 42, it'll print whatever, you get it. So your task is to write a Python script that prints hello world to the terminal. Remember that text must be wrapped in either single or double quotes for it to work. So like you see in these examples, print high, it has to be in quotes. If it's a number, it does not have to be in quotes. But if you want to print the number as a string, as like a text, then you could put it in quotes. But let's not confuse ourselves with that right now. Okay, I think I would like you guys to share your screen now. So, I can kind of look at what you guys are doing.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh goodness.
Okay, now lesson 1 is pretty much the same, but you need to ask the user for their name and then greet them. So if you go back to the README file for this. So in lesson 1, what we're going to be learning is how to get input from the user using the input function, what variables are, which we already discussed in our slides, how to combine variables with text using f-strings. Okay, we already talked about this, right? Variables of different types, name, age, stuff like that. So you'll be using a variable called name to take in the user's input. So this is how you take user input. So you just put a variable name, put an equal mark. The equal to, basically a single equals means you're assigning something to a variable. So you're assigning whatever this function returns to this variable. So what you want to do here is you want to take the user's input to get their name. So instead of type a word, you'll be saying something like, what is your name? So the user will input their name, it'll be stored in this variable, and then what you want to do is you want to print that. So how you can insert variables inside a string using this. So if you write f before the string, then within the string itself, you can use these curly braces to write your variable. I can tell.
Bro.
I'm so confused already.
Okay, so
Wait,
first,
so you need to write word first, word equals input, then
yes, then a prompt for the input. So this is what the user will see on their screen. So in this case, it's saying type a word. In your case, you'll probably say type your name or enter your name. So the result of this gets stored inside this. If you write word, then it'll be stored inside this word. Okay, let me move back to their code and let's see what you guys are doing. Okay, can I put
Input
both of
right.
them? Yeah, input.
I'm just trying to.
Enter your name.
Wait, so. Huh?
So
Word.
word equals.
how it goes.
Input. Yeah, input is the function you want to call.
Input.
So within brackets, you want to type a prompt for the user. So in this case, you want to ask them for the username. You don't need
No
an
need
F.
right?
You don't need an F right now.
Okay. What is your name?
Okay, you
Okay.
usually want to put like a space at the end of the prompt because
Oh yeah.
it'll look better for the user. So yeah. Okay, I think you guys are done with the first part of this. Now the second part is to just print their name. So you've stored their name in the variable called word. Now you just want to do print. So here you want to start it with an F. So F, then start your double quotes.
Wait,
Print,
what?
open your brackets.
Oh,
Now F, then
yeah.
double quotes. So now you can type whatever you want to print. In this case, you want to print hello username, right? So you want to print hello and then put a space. And now you can use the curly brackets. So if you look at my screen or if you look at the README file, you see we're using this curly brackets, right?
Uh-huh.
So if you put word inside curly brackets, basically this will replace this with whatever is stored inside word.
Ah. Where even is the ender keyboard? Oh, here it is.
So yeah, you want to put like curly brackets. Yeah, now you want to type word inside that. So just replace it with whatever the user enters as their name. Yeah, I think you're both set. Now you can just save the file, Control S, and then in your terminal, this time you'll need to, okay, you're in the lesson zeros directory, right? So you need to do cd space
CD
space
space.
dot dot. What dot dot does is it goes back one directory. Yeah. Okay, now cd space lesson one. Okay, let me check what Cry is doing. You're good. You can just do
Wait.
lesson one exercise. You can do tab to autocomplete it maybe, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Enter your name.
Hello, cry.
Let's go.
Yo. Yes,
And
sir.
yeah, you wanna just run Python space
I am
lesson
so
one.
past the hello word.
Yes. You can just
That's
press
an achievement.
tab to autocomplete it. Yes. What is your name?
Oh my god!
Let's go.
Yay!
All right, are you guys tired? If you want, we can skip lesson two because there is a difficulty spike in lesson two. It's quite difficult compared to what we just did.
Starting, bro.
So yeah, but I think you is pretty tired. He's been yawning.
No. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
okay. I was
okay.
just.
All right, let's go back to the slides for a bit. Okay.
Wait, go back to
Operators.
the slides. Hold on. You're gonna go back to the slides. I need to change back to your stream. Where are you? I feel so lost. Where? Hold on. Oh, I need to look at your screen first. Okay, hold on. I'm so.
I think
This
I'm
is
also streaming
terrible.
my display in the call, so if you want, you can switch to that too.
Oh, you see, but the things I don't want to show.
Yeah, that's
Aw.
fine.
Eh? Oh yeah. Okay.
Are you ready?
No. As a matter of fact, I'm lost now even more.
Oh my god. Just open my
not-
stream somewhere on your phone or oh wait, you want to show it on stream, right?
Yeah. Oh no, wait, this is the wrong one. Shoot. Chat, just bear with me. What is this?
If you can't find my stream, just open a new tab.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it.
I would like another stream explaining this stream. Sure. Okay. You know what? Let me open your stream on my phone.
Why?
Streamception. So I can know when you're ready. All right. Okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Operators. Operators are used to do arithmetic operations. So like, the plus sign, the minus sign, division, multiplication, these are all operators. So you can see the example, x equals 5 plus 3. You can, I'm sure you can guess what's stored in x once this line runs, right? It'll be 8. Y equals 10 divided by 2. You can imagine it's going to be 5. But what do you think happens if I do this? If I do z equals high plus 5. So 1 is a string, 1 is a number, like an integer. What do you think happens when I do that? Take a guess. It's actually kind of a trick question, so there's no I mean, I'll accept multiple answers, but yeah, what do you think happens?
High five.
Yeah, so in Python, no, it will show an error. There are some languages where it will implicitly convert 5 into a string and add it, which is what you were expecting. But in Python, it's a bit more, careful about implicitly converting stuff. So if you do this, it'll show an error, but you can, you can surround, I mean, we'll go over that in the next lesson, but you can surround this with str, like you can type, let me go back to my VS Code, right? So if I do set
You just have
equals,
your VG studio open, but you're not showing that.
so if I do this, it will show, it'll be an error. Let me just write the entire code for this. So print z. I'll save this, cd lesson 0, Python lesson 0 exercise. Okay, you see, it says there's an error at this position in line 6. The error is, it's a type error, can only concatenate is a fancy word for basically adding, like combining. So can only concatenate string, not int, to string. So if you want to, basically it's saying you can only concatenate a string with the string. You can only add to texts. You can't add something else to a text. So how would you fix that? If you wanted high five, then what you would do is you would do str. If you wrap this with str, what it does is you're explicitly converting it to a string. So what this is equal to is, this basically means high plus 5, because this is basically converting the 5 into a string. So now if I run this, you see it prints high 5. So yeah, that was a bit of a trick question. If you do this, it'll show an error, but there are some languages where it will automatically do what you expect it to do, but then that can sometimes cause errors. So some languages are more strongly typed. They don't automatically convert types. Let's move on to the next slide, which is...
I think I understand what you just said, I think.
Okay, let me simplify this. We use operators to do arithmetic, but you can usually only do arithmetic for similar types. So you can add a number to a number, but you cannot add a number to a string unless you explicitly convert the number into a string, which is what I showed you in the little demo that I just showed. Okay, so it's that simple. You can only add a number to a number or divide a number by a number.
So by default, it's an integer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there is something that you just brought up. 10 divided by 2 so let's say if you did 10 divided by 3, what do you think it would return?
10 divided by 3.
Yeah.
3 by
Because
3.
yeah, that's what it would return. So what that means is this is an integer. You're dividing an integer by an integer, like 3 is also an integer, but what you're getting is a float. Remember, floats are what we call when it's a decimal number. It's like it has a fractional part. So 3.3333 will be a float. So yeah, if you divide in Python, it returns a float. But if you just wanted the integer part of it, there's a separate operator for that. You don't need to worry about that. But yeah, if it's a fractional part, it will retain the fractional part if you use the normal division. So it is what you would expect in that case. Conditional.
Oh my gosh. Hi, Kitty. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in. We're doing a coding stream today.
Okay, conditional operators are special operators which are used to compare things and return a Boolean value.
Oh, shit.
Do you
Here we
remember what a
go.
Boolean is? Booleans are true and false values. Basically, like yes or no. So
Yes. I
conditional
see.
operators, examples of conditional operators are greater than sign, less than sign. So you remember if you use a single equal, it is used to assign something to a variable, right? So to compare if two things are equal, you need to use two equals. So double equal to is used for comparing if two numbers are equal or two strings are equal. So this is a
When will you
common,
ever need to use that?
I mean, quite often. I mean, if you want to check if, let's say, okay, you're going to be making a calculator, right? So when you do division, you might want to check if your divisor, which is like the second number, is 0, because if you try to divide by 0, it throws an error, right? You cannot divide a number by 0. So then you might want to do like if your number 2, num2 equals 0, then just show an error.
Okay.
Yeah. And there are some more variations to this. Like if you want to check if it's greater than equals, then you would use this second one, greater and equal. If you want to check less than equal, you will use this last one, which is less than and equal. If you want to check if it's not equal, then you use this exclamation mark as a not symbol, so not equals. You can
I
combine
see.
conditions using Boolean operators. There are like, you can do something like if age, let me go switch back to VS Code for this. So you can do something like this. If age greater than 18 and let's say sex equals M, then you want to do something. So you can use the word and to check both of these. So let's say if a person, their age is 19 but they're female, then obviously this condition will be satisfied, but this won't be. So you want and, when you use and, it means you want both of them to be satisfied, so it will not satisfy this entire condition. Similarly, you can use or. If you use or in this case, then if it's someone like an age 19 but a female, then this part would be
It'll be
satisfied. This won't be satisfied, but because you're using an or, you're okay with if any of the two is satisfied. So in that case, this entire thing would evaluate to true, as in it would be like a yes, let's go. Okay, do we want to go to, okay, loops. Do we need loops for this? You know what, let's cover this, but it's fine if you don't use it. I think you don't need to use it necessarily in the next exercise. But yeah, loops allow you to do the same thing over and over without having to type the same thing over and over. So there are different types of loops. The common ones are a for loop and a while loop. I'll go over the while loop first because it's a bit easier to understand. So let's say you have a variable which says count equals 0. Now you want to do something that happens 3 times while the counter is less than 3. Let's say you're doing, we're talking about a Twitch chatbot, right? Let's say you have a chatbot which keeps a death counter. Let's say you're playing a game like Dark Souls and you want a death counter. And if your death reaches, let's say like 50, then you want to show some sort of, I don't know, play a sound alert or something. So what you would do here is, while death count, if the count is 0, while count is less than 50, that's fine. You can just proceed. Count equals count plus 1, and it's just printing the count. But if, okay, let me again switch back to this. While count less than 50, That's the example we were taking, right? That's the death counter for your Dark Souls playthrough or whatever. So if it's less than 50, you just want to increase the counter. Count equals count plus 1. So the moment the count goes over 50, that's when this loop stops executing, because that's what a while loop does. While this condition is satisfied, do whatever's inside the while loop. Okay, one thing I didn't mention about Python is, in Python you use indentation, like you use these spaces to define blocks of code. So anything I type with this indent, that's all inside this while loop. So while this loop is running, everything that's indented within this, so if I have like 3 more print statements, obviously I didn't write the entire statement, but you can imagine something print whatever. Count is count. You can maybe print like you are still safe because you haven't died 50 times yet, something like that. So, but the moment your count reaches 50, this condition stops being satisfied. So then you will break out of this loop and you will go to whatever is here. So it will do print you died 50 times. So what this piece of code will do is, your count, you want to start your count at 0, obviously. So while your count is less than 50, it'll increase your count by 1 and it'll print the new count. It'll say that you're still safe. Then when your count reaches 50, it'll say you died 50 times. So let me just run this code for you. I need to increase this. So you can see we just printed like count is 1, count is 2. We printed it 50 times and count is 50. You died 50 times. It broke out of the loop. And now there's another type of loop called a for loop, which does works in a slightly different way. It's basically let's think of this in like English terms, right? For I in range 5. This is too much. I'm going to bed. Okay, bye worst.
Okay, thank you, Worst, for joining.
Thanks for joining. Are you sure you don't want to watch this in bed for some like light streams in bed?
Oh my days!
Okay.
I think he's gonna have nightmares.
I don't want
I
to
don't
die.
have nightmares.
Okay, so for I in range 5, so what range 5 is? Range is again a function. You can, we've talked about functions, right? Whenever you have something followed by brackets, it's usually a function. Like we've seen print, we've seen input. So range, what range 5 does is, so range 5 it basically evaluates to a list of numbers less than 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thanks for the hydrate. Yeah, I will hydrate. But yeah, this is what range 5 evaluates to. So now when you do for I in range 5, which is what we saw in the slides, for I in range 5, what this means is, what it's basically doing is, for I in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're saying for I is a variable name, for I in this list of numbers. So what that means is, on the first iteration of this loop, the value of I will be, if you print I, the first iteration, the value will be 0. Then when the loop starts again, and the value will be 1. So that's what this is doing. So you can imagine that, we had this while loop for counting up to 50, right? So you could do the same thing with the for loop. You can do for I in range 50. It would do the exact same thing, because it would go through 0, 1, 2, 3, up to 49, and then it would break out. So these are the 2 types of loops that you want to worry about. There are different ways of doing stuff, but yeah, you don't need to worry about that. I think you don't even need to use a loop in your code today. So yeah, we're just covering it because it's a pretty basic part of code. You can imagine you often want to do something repeatedly. So yeah. Okay, data structures. We kind of brushed on this a bit in the previous slide. Data structures are ways to organize and store data for specific purposes. There are many useful data structures like lists, dictionaries, queues, sets, maps. You don't need to worry about most of them. In fact, you don't need to worry about anything today. But lists look like what we just talked about, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can have a list of fruits, apple, banana, cherry. You can access individual items from the list using their index starting with 0. So if you do my fruit equals fruits within like square brackets, if you put 0, my fruit will be equal to apple because it's the 0th element in this list. Dictionaries are kind of similar to list, but lists are like okay, dictionaries are, how do I explain it? It's like they're basically key value pairs. So you can have, like, if you have a dictionary called a person, you can save their name as Alex, comma, their age as 25. You can have different data types for them. So you can imagine that this person dictionary is like a full definition of what a person would be, like their name, their age, their whatever, their sex, whatever you want to define. You can do that. And you can access individual fields like this, kind of similar to what you do in lists. In lists, you use the index. Here you can use the name of the variable. So if you do person, within square brackets, if you use name, you will get Alex. So my name will be equal to Alex. I think we are only going to talk about these two data structures. There are a lot of very useful ones, like queues. I mean, you can imagine that queues are pretty useful in, for example, networking, where you want to queue, let's say multiple users are requesting things from your bot. You want to queue their requests. Let's say you can have song requests, you can queue them. So yeah, but I don't think we're going to go into that much detail today. But yeah. What do we have next? Okay, let's get hands. I think that's all for the slides. That's all the concepts we're going to cover. Okay. Do we want to go to lesson 2? Or do you guys want to skip to the chatbot part?
What do you think as our
Wait,
first
my
part?
brain.
I think we should go on a break, Cha.
Yeah, that sounds right.
No, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, how about we do lesson 2 and then we take a break before we do the chatbot?
Okay.
It's building a simple calculator. So what you learned today is how to convert text to numbers with int. So you remember how we converted a number into a string using str, right? We wrapped it in str and it converted into a string and we printed high five. So similarly, you can convert a string into an integer using int. So for example, if we go back to VS Code, if you have a number, let's say num equals 50. Wait, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's say hey, num equals 50. If you have a number as a string, you can do n equals int num. What this would do is it would convert it into a number. So then now the value of n will be 50. It's not a string anymore. So you will definitely need to use this for your calculator. So yeah, remember this is how you do it. You do whatever your variable name is. For your calculator, you probably want two numbers. So you can have like n1 is int something. What will go inside this is what you will need to figure out. Something. Then you will have a second number, which will be int something. And then you will do a calculation using these two numbers. Okay, so arithmetic operators, we already talked about this. How to make decisions with if, else if. You don't need to worry about match case. That was kind of, if we had more time, we would talk about that. But if, else if is a simpler way to do conditionals. We talked about conditional operators before. How to repeat code with loops. We talked about that in slides. How to handle errors. Again, we could probably skip this for now.
Errors gracefully. Yes.
Yeah, because you can imagine like what happens if I do this, right? But what if num instead of being 50 like this, what if it's, let's say, high 5? You can imagine
Oh.
this will not work, right? You can't convert high 5 into an integer. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's why you need error handling. If you guys are interested, obviously I have like the write-up for all of this, so you can see this later. But for the stream, I'm pretty sure you guys just want to get it over with as quickly as possible. So you don't need to worry about error handling. We will just assume that the user is nice and they will not enter, something that's not a number when you ask them to enter a number. Okay, so type conversion, it's what we'll be talking about. So let's say you ask the user for how old are you. You use the input function to get the age text. It returns something as a string, right? If they type 25, it'll return it as a string. So now age equals int age text. This converts it to a number. You can also do this entire thing in one line. Like this is an example. This is a completely separate example. What you're doing here is you're asking the user to enter a price and you're directly wrapping it in floats. So you're directly converting it instead of doing it in 2 lines. You don't
more
need to worry about that.
advanced.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about that. You can do it in 1 line, you can do it in 2 lines, that's fine. Arithmetic operators, we just want these basic 4 ones. There are more obviously, but let's just stick to these 4, which is plus, minus, multiplication, and division. Okay, making decisions. You will need to use this to decide, like let's say if the user wants to do addition, you want to do something. If the user wants to do subtraction, you want to do something else. So you do want to use your if, else if. So let's say you ask the user for a choice, pick a number. If the user's choice is 1, so choice double equals 1, you print, you picked 1. So elif basically means else if. It's a shortened form of else if. So else if the choice is 2, then you pick 2. And else is just like a catch-all condition. So if none of the above conditions are met, then you can do that. Then it'll do whatever is inside the else part of it. Okay, so you don't need to worry about match case. It's like a different way of doing if else if, but you don't need to worry about that. Repeating code while loop, we already talked about this. If you need a refresher when you're coding, I'll help you with that, but for now let's skip out of this. Breakout, you can break out of loops early using the break line of, like if you just type break, it'll break out of a loop early. So let's say even if you haven't completed, let's say we were counting to 50 here, right? But let's say we want to add a condition where if count equals, let's say, I don't know, 30, then break. If you do this, it'll break at 30. It will break out of this loop. So let me just delete everything here. Let me run this code again. So you see this time it only printed till 30. Then it broke out of the loop and it printed this. You died 50 times. So yeah, you can use break for breaking out early. You can use continue to skip to the next iteration in a loop. So let's say you want to do if count equals 25, continue. What this will do is for if the count is 25, it will not print this line and this line. Okay, let me make this a bit, okay, let me make all of these numbers smaller, right? Let me make this 10, make this 20. I will run this. Okay, so you can see we printed count is 1, count is 2, count is 3, count is 4. But when the count was 5, we met this continue statement, right? Because the count equals 5, we continued. So we did not run these 2 lines. So you can see we never printed that the count is, wait, what? Oh, my terminal is glitching out. Give me a second. Let me just rerun the code. Okay, yeah, you can see we printed count is 3, count is 4. We did not print count as 5. We skipped over to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And when we reached 10, we broke out of the loop.
7. Sorry, chat.
Okay. This is error handling. Like we said, you don't have to worry about that, but basically it's actually quite simple. You just need to wrap whatever code you're doing, right? Like you want to do this. You are scared that when you ask the user to enter a number, they might enter something that is not a number. So you just wrap that code in a try block. So again, you can think in terms of English. You're just telling the computer to try running this. And if something exceptional happens, so except value error, then print this. So if you type, let's say, hello instead of a number, then it will raise a value error and it will print that that's not a valid number. So error handling is actually quite simple, but you don't need to worry about that. Yeah, you can handle multiple error types. All of this documentation, if you want, you can read it if you want to learn more about coding, but yeah, we can skip. Okay, your task is to build a calculator with a menu. So you want to display a menu like this. Like you can show numbers and then like add, subtract like that. So ask the user to pick an operation. So the user, let's say, if the user picks 2, then you want to subtract. Then you ask for 2 numbers. You might want to like ask for the 2 numbers at first, or you can ask it after having them choose the option 2. That's fine. And then, okay, let's see, this is an example. So 1 is add, 2 is subtract, 3 is multiply, 4 is divide. Pick an option. The user picked 1. Enter the first number. The user entered 10. Enter the second number, 5. So we just added the 2 numbers and returned the result. So this is what you need to code. You just need to code something that works like this. Do you think you can do it?
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, okay. I don't even know where to start.
Same.
First, I think you want to display the menu, right? So you want to print. You just want to print like, one option. Choose an option, and then 1 is addition, 2 is subtraction, something like that. Yeah, I think first you want to just print print the prompt for the user, like something like this.
How do you get it to make it into different lines?
You can just use a different print statement for it for now. I think in Python, how you do it is it this? Let me try it. Yeah, if you use triple quotes, I think you can do multi-line stuff. So wait, I'll just show you guys how to do that. Let's say choose an option. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Yeah, that worked. So yeah, you want to do something like this. If you look at my screen, you can do something like this. If you use triple quotes, then it lets you do multi-line text.
I don't even know if I spelled the word right.
Yeah, you did. All good.
Wait, then that's it?
That's showing the menu to the user.
Right,
Now,
the menu. Yeah.
yeah, now you want to take input from them. You remember how to use the input function, right? So you want to define a variable first, like choice equals.
Choice equals.
No, single equal for assignment, right? Double equal is for
Alright.
checking equality. Input, and then whatever prompt you want to give. Oh, you don't have to
But-
give a prompt since you already said what you want to do. You can just open brackets and close brackets. You need to open like your brackets, right? Yeah, right. So now you can give a prompt. You don't have to give a prompt. Thanks for the follow, Harry.
What should I say?
Fuck is choice, bro.
Um,
What is choice?
yeah, you've
So
got your
lost.
choice. You don't have to include a prompt. You can leave it blank if you want. Hello
Can
there,
you
my
leave blank?
fellow
Okay.
Python enjoyers. Hello, Harry. Yeah, I'm just
Oh, hi,
teaching my
Harry.
friends how to code.
Oh, oh God, save me.
Okay.
I feel very lost. Oh, I'm not mad, guys. Trust me. Hold on. Why is my model mad?
Are you sure about that?
I'm not mad. I'm just confused. Why is that?
Right.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
right.
you forgot to add like 4 for the divide. Like you want to tell the user to pick 4 for
Oh,
divide,
yeah.
right?
It's
Okay,
a
wait. No.
typo.
Choice equals input and open bracket and I leave it empty. It's fine, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. What's
Choice.
next?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Next, I think you want to, yeah, you can look at the README if you want. Just scroll to the very bottom. It should be towards the bottom.
Pick a number.
Yeah. So you've done the pick and operation part. Now you want to enter first number and second number. So you want them to enter 2 numbers. So this is what I was showing you, remember? N1 equals input. Single equals. Okay, you should probably wrap it in int. Remember, you want to convert the string. No. N1 equals
N1
equals.
equal int.
Yeah, now within the brackets, you can put in your input. You can put in the prompt. You can put in a prompt. For cry, you want to do what you want to do. Yeah, okay. Within int, you want to put input. And then you want to put in a prompt like input your first number or something.
Oh.
Open.
Do I need to quotation
Yeah,
mark or
yeah.
what?
And you need to brackets again. Yeah, now quotes. Yes. Yeah, you want to open like brackets again, Cry?
It's not.
Not the curly ones, the round ones.
The
Yes,
the
now you want to
brown
input
Oh, my
ones.
God.
a round.
Oh.
It's so confusing.
Okay, let me show you what I'm.
So you're gonna input.
Okay, so this enter first number. So the reason I have you wrap it in int is because this will return a string, right?
Mm-hmm.
The input function returns a string. So if you wrap that in int, you will automatically convert it into a number. So that's what you want to do. Now you want to do, you can copy paste this line and just change 1 to 2. Basically, it's the same. You want the same line, but instead of first number, you want the second number. So n2 equals int input second number.
But it can be more lah, technically.
Yeah, but we're just doing like addition, subtraction, multiplication, divide. So we're only going to be working with 2 numbers. Are you both ready? Yeah, I think you are. Okay, now what you have to do is based on the user's choice, you want to either add or subtract or multiply or divide. So how do you think you'll do that?
I if the value is more than 1 or equals to 1, then you do something.
Yes, if choice equals 1
If choice
equals. So remember, this is
1,
we did not convert the choice into a number, right? So it's a string. So you need to like double quotes 1. Yeah. Yeah, you want to write like an if statement. So if choice equals. Now, because your choice is a string, you did not convert it into a number. You want to do like quotes, open quotes, and within quotes put 1. Yeah. So for if statements, you need to put like a colon after that. Like you can look at the readme if you want, or this symbol basically. You see, like after while, true, after try, all of these, there's this colon symbol, right?
you talking to
This,
me?
yeah, but I mean, anyone who's confused can see this
Wait,
this symbol
try
basically.
the colon.
Yeah, the colon. You just need to put that colon at the end of your if statement. So if whatever choice equals 1, then put a colon.
Do I need a spacing or no spacing?
Doesn't matter, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, press enter. Yeah, you can now do whatever you want to do if the choice is 1. So in this case, you want to do like result equals n1 plus n2, I think. Not double equals, yes. It's a
Yeah,
single equal
figured.
because, yeah. Not and, you want to plus, right? You just want to use the plus symbol for that, just addition.
Oh, just like,
Yeah,
a
just,
plus
yeah.
side, literally.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes. So now you can imagine you would do exactly the same thing, like elif choice equals 2, then you want to do subtraction. Like press
if
yeah, I mean, you could technically just use if statements for this too, but ideally you would want to use elif, which is like else if, right? If it is not 1, then if choice equals 2. Put a colon.
Oh, yeah, I need the colon.
Yes. Result is n1 minus n2. Cry, where are you stuck? Okay, I think, yeah, you've got the addition done. Now you can go to the next line. You'll need to like unindent your code, like backspace, and type elif, which is like else if. So if choice is not 1, else if choice equals 2.
If it's multiply and divide, it's also LF.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not too bad. This is quite easy.
Yeah. Basically have to do the same thing 4 times pretty much. Result equals n1 minus n2. Now same thing for choice equals 3, choice equals 4. Yeah, you can just copy paste that too. For divide, it's an asterisk. You need to use like the star symbol, you know.
Let's divide. I thought let's multiply.
For multiply, yes, sorry.
Oh,
I was looking at cries and I got confused, yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this correct?
Yeah, looks correct. Yeah, I think
okay.
you're both done with the calculation. Now you just need to print the result. So just print result You can use another F string to, add it. Or you can just directly print the result if you want. That's fine too.
Print. Wait, I don't get it. Print.
Okay, do you want to just print the number or do you want to print like your result is or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
wanna.
We should do that.
yeah, so you can do something like this then, right? Print result. Okay, wait, I forgot to do the F. So you want to use an F string again. Remember we talked about that. You can insert variables inside your string with that. So if you do this, it will print result, colon, and then the result.
I'm trying to. Colon result. Okay.
Yeah, I think you're set. You can save your code and try running it.
How do I do it again?
The curly brackets. Yeah, I think you'll need to cd dot dot. I'm talking to Cry, by the way. Don't get confused.
Okay.
You. Cd dot dot. This will take you up one directory because you're in the lesson 1 directory right now. So you need to go up once. Press enter. Now cd lesson 2.
I think I need to do that also now.
Yeah,
So
you
I
also need to do that. Yes.
C dot dot. Then cd lesson 2.
Yeah, you probably want to put a space after like result is, because otherwise the number will be printed right before the curly braces. Yeah. And you want to save your code, Control S.
Yes.
It's still showing the white dot. Is it not saved?
Right.
Yeah,
There
it's
you
saved
go.
now. First number, yeah, I think Rai has got it.
Wait,
You
it
can,
doesn't look good.
yeah, it doesn't look good. You can add like spaces.
What is
This
this?
is space.
FWI search.
Sorry. Huh?
This thing.
Just press Control C. Okay, yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Python lesson 2 exercise. You can use tab, yes.
Alrighty.
Oh, this is slave. Oh my
Let's
god.
go. You can try a couple of different options if you want. No, you added the space in the wrong place. You need to add the space within the quotes.
Oh, within the codes.
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Oh my god, this is so slick.
Let's go.
I can't believe I did that. Well, you did that.
No,
Well, it's
you
actually
guys
quite
did.
easy though.
Yeah, it is. Like, I mean, obviously, if you're doing it the first time, you need a bit of guidance, but if you get some practice in, I'm sure you can do it. It's not that difficult. This is a bot that I wrote in like a week when I had like a week off from work. And it was for, so I used to stream basically to myself. but I sometimes had my friends come by and I would never, look at chat because obviously I was just streaming to no viewers. But yeah, my friends would come by, they would type in chat, and then I would see that like 10 minutes later, and by the time they had already left. So yeah, I made this bot to kind of interact with chat and, read out their messages or reply to that. But then over some time, I added a lot of different features. So this is kind of the extent. I mean, it's nowhere near like. So you guys know Neurosama, right? The AI VTuber.
Yeah.
No?
There's
What?
a
Who?
VTuber who's like basically an AI. So
I see.
it was kind of inspired by her because she replies to chat sometimes. So I kind of used a similar idea, except in her case she gets like 100 chat messages a second, so she just randomly picks messages. In my case, I just made it so that every time there's a message in chat, this bot will reply to that. So yeah, it's taking some time to start up, but once it does, okay, let me open this up. All right, so this is the chatbot control panel. I can connect to Twitch. Okay, now if I type in my own Twitch chat, right? Hello world. See, the bot replies to it.
Hey, Dark Knight plays, back online and ready to take over the gaming world, I see. What's on the gaming agenda for
Yo,
tonight?
that's cool.
Hog Cham.
I think I disabled it so that like it doesn't reply to everyone, because otherwise, okay, maybe I can change that so you guys can also talk to it, but I can also like talk to it using my mic. So if I turn this on, we're not gaming today, we're learning some coding.
Learning some coding, huh? Well, I'm sure that's a great way to level up your skills. Dark Knight plays, just don't expect me to help you debug. I'm still working on my world domination code. What's the
So
plan?
cool.
Are you building something awesome?
Is that an AI model?
Yeah, for this, I think I'm using one of like Meta's free models. I don't remember exactly which one, but for the voice, I'm using Koki TTS or something it's called. Let me look at it. Okay, the library is just called TTS, but yeah, if you have my stream audio on, then you'll hear the bot talk too. But yeah, it could also connect to Discord, but I think it broke recently because recently Discord changed some stuff about their voice servers. So yeah, I can't connect to Discord anymore. Oh yeah, I can also, this is really cool. So I can ask it to, look at my screen and tell me what I'm doing, or, what's on my screen. So let's say, take a look at my screen and tell me what's on it.
You're on the OBS Studio control panel, Dark Knight plays. I see you're managing scenes, sources, and audio settings. Looks like you're all set for coding and streaming.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the latency
Whoa.
isn't that bad too.
Glad you're enjoying OBS Studio, Dark
Oops,
Knight
I
plays.
forgot to turn
Need
off
any
my...
help with coding, or just want to chat about your favorite games, like Valorant or Genshin Impact?
That's kind
Bad,
of
huh?
creepy.
Want me to help check your stream settings, or is it just being finicky tonight?
Yeah, but yeah, this is a pretty, I mean, I wouldn't say it's simple, but it's like it's in an intermediate state, right? It's something. Obviously, your bot won't be able to do all this TTS and stuff, but yeah, you can imagine this is using the same stuff, that the same base that we'll be working on today. There's also like a memory. It remembers past messages, and in the last message, you remember it said like, are you going to be playing your favorite games like Valorant and Genshin Impact? That's because it remembers that I've told it that I play Valorant and Genshin Impact, stuff like that. You can add like a filter, so if you want some words to be filtered. So right now I think I just have a dummy word there. Dummy. So if you say Poopy McPoop, then it will filter that message. It won't reply to it. But yeah. So yeah, I'll just turn this bot off for now. But yes, so using the same base as this bot uses, we will be working on our final part of the final assignment, the final lesson, which is this chatbot.py. So in this case, I've already provided you guys with a lot of the base code because, you know, we're using this Twitch IO library and stuff, right? So there are some conditions you need to follow, like some boilerplate code. So I've already added all of that for you. So I'll just go over this. Let me go back to this. Let me close this. Let me close this. Let me close this. Let's go to chatbot. Okay, building a chatbot. What you learned today is how to structure code within functions. So until now, we've been using functions, but we have not written our own functions. I think you might want to write your own functions for this one. You learn how to work with libraries and environment variables. You learn how to respond to chat commands and how to handle all messages. Okay, so remember functions. I'm not going to go over this. I'm assuming you guys remember functions because we've been using them all this time, like input and print. Those are all functions that we've been using. Working with libraries. So you work with libraries by importing them. So if you import, let's say this is importing the library called random. So the random library allows you to generate like random numbers. So if you want a random number, you can use random.randint. This is basically telling it to generate a random integer between 1 and 10. So, you know, you might want to do like a, you know, exclamation mark riz or something, right? That's basically doing the same thing. It's just generating a random number. Oh my god, what the hell? Oh, that's crazy. Okay.
I'm pinning that.
You won, bro. You won.
I'm also betting that. Oh my god. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so you can you can have a command like that, which is like, you know, between 1 and 100, you get a random number and it returns that. So in this case, we're going to be using the Twitch IO library. So yeah, you guys will need to run this command in your terminal to install the Twitch IO library. Pip install Twitch IO. Yeah, we just installed Twitch IO. That's going to help us connect to your Twitch chat. I already had you guys get your Twitch tokens and store them as like a user environment variable called Twitch_token. So you don't need to worry about that. So in Python, you can use your environment variables using this OS module. So os.environ.get Twitch token. This will get your token without, you know, exposing it, without actually writing the token in your code. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. I think I have put that in the starter code anyway. Have I? Wait, have I?
Have you?
Yes, I have. Okay.
Yay.
os.environ.get Twitch token. I hope you both named it exactly this. If you didn't, you will need to change this. But I think you did. Yeah. So
We'll see.
okay, so this is the starter code, right? This is, you're defining a bot class. You don't need to worry about that. You're defining some initial stuff, like you're getting the Twitch token. You want defining the prefix for the commands. You can change it here if you want, but by default we're using, you know, exclamation mark for that. And here you will want to change this to your channel name. So for my case, it'll be dork. I think it's not case sensitive, so you could just type like Dork Night Plays. That should also work. But yes, you want to type your own channel name here. So now there's two ways of doing this. Let's go back to this, right? So bot is our main class that handles Twitch connections. Event ready runs when the bot successfully connects. So when it successfully connects, it runs this function, which just prints that it has logged in as whatever the username is. It'll print your username here. So command, this is a decorator. You don't need to worry about decorators right now, but it's decorators are kind of like functions which take functions as input. It's kind of like functionception, but you don't really need to worry about that. Basically, you can use this decorator, this @commands.command, to define any of your functions as a command for your Twitch chatbot. So in this case, you have a command called hello, which you don't really need to worry. You can just copy paste this to create your own commands. And what this command will do is it'll just say hello, and it'll just print the name of the author, whoever invoked this command. So that's like the first way to do it. So if you want to make your own command, let's say you want to make a command called, I think in the readme I've asked you to make a command for time, printing the, you want to make a time command, so you can name this time. So now whenever a user types !time in chat, it will trigger this function. But the problem is right now we're just printing hello to the user. That's not what we want to do. What we want to do is hello. I mean, we can still keep the hello this. We also want to print the current time for the streamer is, and then you want to print the time. You can make it's an f string already. So now your task is, how do you get this time? That's also described in the readme. If we go back, it's somewhere there, right? Okay, yeah. There's a hint for telling you how to get the time. You can basically just copy paste this code. It'll get the current time inside this variable. So then you can just put current time here. And this command will do exactly what you want it to do. So that's one way of defining a command, just making a function with this decorator and using these parameters. Another way is we already have this function. I've defined this function for you. So what this function does is anytime a message is sent in your chat, this function is triggered. So this part is ignoring messages from the bot itself. So if it's an echo message, if it's messages from the same user, then it just skips the rest of the code. Otherwise, it prints whatever the message was said, like this author said this message. So you can, obviously, in this place, you have access to the contents of the message. So you can obviously do something based on that, right? If message dot content equals, let's say instead of doing this, what if we use this way of doing the time command? We can do this. So if the message content is !time, then you want to return the time. Print the current time is current time. So yeah, this is one more way of doing it. This is basically getting the entire message from the user, and you can check if the message contains something, and based on that you can do whatever you want to do. So yeah, I think that's all you need to know to make your own chatbot. I mean, the basic code, as long as you change the initial channel, if you change it to your own one, and as long as you have the Twitch token, the code should run out of the box. You don't even need to add anything. You can just run it, and you can try typing !hello in your chat, and it should work. So you can probably start with that.
Okay, so time.
And then you want to tell the user the time. How you get the time, you can find that in the readme for this. I mean, you can keep this part if you want, like, hey user, this will just say like ctx.author.name will just return
No,
the
I don't
username.
fucking want to. I don't fucking want to say that. I just give you the time. To be like, Chi-boy, why do you want to know the time there? Trying to stalk me or some shit. Where is it?
A little to the top.
Time,
Yeah,
this one, right?
yeah, that snippet, like the 3 lines from date, time, import. Yes.
Where did I put it?
Put it just after like the time function, but just before the await line. Yes, press enter, and you need to like fix the indentation. Just press tab on them once more. Yes. Whoops.
Oh, shit, sir.
Yeah,
Oh.
now you have the current time. You can just so this is the string. You need to use like the curly braces to use the F string, right?
Ah.
You can say something like time, the current time is, and then put the curly braces. Welcome back.
Oh.
I think your camera thing is on, but it's like a blue screen again. So you can turn off your camera if you want, Cry. Yeah.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. You know
Like
what? I want to add the Riz one.
you can do that. Wait, you know what? Just,
Let's do that another time. Thank you.
let me just show you how to do that. I won't make you guys do it, but sure, let's command async def riz cell. You know what? I'm just gonna copy this. Okay, so now we want import random. Riz equals random dot randint between 1 and 100.
Shouldn't it be 0 to 100?
Sure.
Would you
Zero
like
is
to do 101?
okay. Yeah, let's do that. If you get 101 raise, you're like,
Your God.
let me copy this. This will be the name of the user. Has riz percent riz. Okay, now I will. Okay, let me do it in my own chat. Wait, then both they will conflict. Let me do it for you then. Because I already have a risk command, so I don't want to. Yeah, you should be able to do it. I don't know if I made any mistakes because I just blind coded this, but
Oh, yeah, and only
Oh,
at 3%.
uh-oh.
Oh. I'm so sad.
Oh, those are low rolls.
Bro, this bot hates us.
Let's try it. I'm gonna try.
Oh,
Whoa. Whoa. Muso. Why does it have more in your chat? My chat is so low. Dang.
that's just randomness.
Can
think
you
my bot
do
hates
this?
everyone.
Can you do this on any streamer?
Yeah, I think you can, but you don't want to get like reported, right? Because I mean,
Also,
yeah.
you can.
Because I mean, look, obviously you're allowed to chat in any streamer's chat,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's basically what you're doing, right? You're making a bot which is chatting, sending messages in someone's chat. So like if I use UU's name, then it sends messages in his chat. If I use mine, it'll send in mine. But obviously if you do it to someone unknown and they're like, why is this person, sending messages here? And they figure out you're a bot, then they might ban you or something. You might get reported. So yeah, probably don't do it to people you don't know. But you could definitely do it
Just
to people
do
you
it to Suki and then we
So
just
what's
do
the
it.
code for spamming?
Yeah, like obviously if they ban the account, and especially if you're using your own. So in my case, because I made a separate bot for like TTS and stuff, I use like a different account, like the Byte Night bot account. But if you use your own token, then it'll obviously send messages as you. So if you spam, then they might ban you, and then your main account gets banned in their chat. So yeah, don't do that. Don't do it
I
to
see.
people who don't want it. But
Do
obviously,
it to your friend. Do it to
yeah.
your friends. Make them confused.
Wait,
Yeah.
can you play like music using the code?
You could do that. I mean, it's not like directly a part of this Twitch IO stuff, but because it's basically just Python code, you can have. So, and let me open my other project that I showed you guys, right? The Pythonite bot thing. Session is in progress. Wait, let me close this bot. So if I go to this bot, I see I have this audio player class. So this is a bit more complicated. You can see there's a lot of stuff. There's a Discord voice,
Oh
there's
my
a chat.
days.
But I have this
My
audio
God.
player class, which basically you can just pass it like a MP3 or a WAV file, and it'll just play that
Interesting.
audio. Yeah,
File
WAV.
path from your PC?
Yeah. So
Okay. That's cool.
so what I do here is somewhere here, I think. Let me see. DTS.
This is so complicated.
Yeah, see, I generate an audio. So the bot, I use an LLM to get the response from the bot, right? And then I use this text. I use this TTS client library to create a file. So it creates like a WAV file for that in the temp directory. And then I pass that to the audio player, and then it plays that TTS file. So yeah, you could definitely do it. It's a lot more complicated than just simply returning something into a chat. But
Okay.
yes.
I understand everything.
Okay.
So do you need to open your VS Code if you're gonna use the bot?
You can run it in like your CMD or like terminal. You can run it
C&D, Code Dagger.
CMD, command prompt.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
I thought we were
I
talking about
see.
Marvel. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
My god, okay, wait, today's actually really fun though. Especially the calculator part, because I still cannot believe it.
Well, congratulations.
I
You
can
did
brag
it.
to my friends.
Yeah.
Congrats for making the calculator.
It's okay. We'll fix it, and then next time when I stream, it'll work. It'll work. I think. I hope.
Yeah, you can definitely use your own chatbot for that, but yeah, I would probably suggest like
Wait, I still need you to help me with freaking what
streamer
was it
bot.
called again? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, like for chat commands and stuff, I think there's already existing tools like streamerbot, which are, much more. I mean, they've spent years on it,
User
so
friendly. It's user
yeah.
friendly.
But
Actually, not really.
if you want some like custom behavior, like the bot that I showed you, right? It responds with like an LLM, and there's TTS, and you can like look at your screen and tell you what's on your screen. If you want custom behavior, then obviously you want your own bot for that. But if you just want like chat commands and stuff, you should probably use something that already exists. I mean, it's cool if you write your own bot and you run it, but yeah, it's probably easier,
Yeah.
more user friendly to just use like Stream Elements or Streamer Bot or something.
Until your own bot decides to fail on you, and you're like no idea what's happening midstream.
Yeah, usually for like simple stuff, it shouldn't. But like I said, like Discord changed something recently, so my bot can't connect to Discord calls anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It gets stuck in like it connects, then it disconnects, it connects. So I keep hearing like the Discord connection and disconnection sounds.
Oh no.
So yeah,
Okay, that sucks.
but for basic commands and stuff, the bot has been working for like 1.5 years. I haven't really updated the code much, and it still works.
Much.
Yeah.
Need to update.
Yeah, I did add like the vision stuff, right? Like looking at my screen and telling me stuff. I don't think I added that when I first made it, but I was just working on that stuff, as in like just for just as a hobby, I was just looking at image OCR stuff.
Yay.
Like I think I'm using Gemini for that. So I'm just passing the image to Gemini, and it tells me what's in the image, and based on that, my bot gives a response. So yeah, congrats on your first Python lesson.
Expectation versus reality.
Hey, you know what? We hit very close to reality though.
I think
I mean,
Your-
expectation. Sorry. Holy moly.
I think in terms of the code itself, like you guys did great. It's just the issues with Windows and stuff. It's not your fault at all. That stuff is just really. I mean, there are tools that are specifically exist just to, like, there's something called Docker, which like basically creates like a container within which you can set things up, and you can just, like move that container from one PC to the other, so you don't need to worry about setting up your Python environment and stuff like that. So
So
there's
it's like
tools,
a sandbox.
yeah, there's like tools and platforms which specifically exist because it's so rough, setting up your like Python environment and like all your libraries and things like that. So yeah,
It's so rough
in
that
terms
I
of the
finished
actual
whole
code, I
mean,
think you
just
guys did
what
great.
is this? Yeah. Oh my god, you're such a great teacher tonight.
That was rough.
Oh, stress. Stress.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Nice,
you,
like, I don't get
thank you.
paid enough for this.
I don't get paid at all for this. I mean, I do
I think
at
we
work.
need to pay him.
I mean, I kind of do similar work at work, but obviously not like this simple, obviously. But yeah, I do
Makes
work with a lot
This
of
simple,
Python.
okay. We're struggling over here and he calls this simple.
No, I mean the code itself, it was pretty simple, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I would say like
was
even at
worth it.
work, like the actual coding part is the easy part, but sometimes there's errors. There's like something's not working because this library got updated and it broke something and there's something else. So that's the part that
Okay.
really gets on your nerves, and it takes a long time to debug. It's like 3-4
Okay.
hours of your day just trying to fix something that broke because some library got updated or something. But yeah, the coding part is fun, at least for me. Like I actually enjoy writing code.
Yeah, no, I think the coding part's fun because
Yeah, and when it works, it's like you wrote this calculator. It feels, you get the sense of
Right.
accomplishment.